Blah freaking blah. So what's going on, guys? I finally watched Alien Covenant. Prometheus 2. Sort of. Alien prequel. Sort of. When you have guys like Ridley Scott is a filmmaker who wants to present something to you that's challenging. He's an old school filmmaker. And I think that's part of the reason why his vision is so what's the word I'm looking for? That's why people look to him, look to his films. Like every time he's doing a movie, like, oh, Ridley Scott's doing something, because Ridley Scott will very often do his own thing. He will put his vision on screen for you to watch or enjoy or not enjoy. And he's had some misses. I mean, because he does try to put his vision up on screen. Take, for instance, Blade Runner. When Blade Runner originally came out, it was a critical and commercial bomb. It was not a success. And I know some of you guys watched the film. You know, after hearing the hype, you watched the film, and some of you were like, you're right, this is amazing. A lot of people are like, you know what, it's overhyped, I don't get it. And what Blade Runner basically was, it was an amazing vision of the future. I mean, visually just stunning, but at its heart, it was a film noir. That's what it was. It was a shoe gum film, where you had kind of the private eye loner type, the bounty hunter, who was chasing after criminals and bringing them down. I mean, at its heart, it was a really simple story, but it was surrounded with such atmosphere and passion and uniqueness that it made it stand out from the pack. The original Alien was very much the same thing. Alien, on paper, is nothing special. It's a monster movie. It's the monster in the house chasing you film. It's essentially the same film as Halloween. You know, you have the main characters getting chased and killed by said evil persona. And that was it. But Ridley Scott brought such a unique vision to it and surrounded him with people that had such a unique vision and filled the cast with people that were so good that what came out was something that was much higher caliber than it had any business being. I think Blade Runner was the same way. So what happens when you take someone who is chasing after such an original vision and you mix in a bunch of, well, the fans want this, ... Fan service. And I'm not against fan service. I believe that there should be, the filmmakers shouldn't be ignorant of the fan base. So what you're left with is you need this fine line. And I realize I haven't gotten to the movie review yet. But I promise I'm getting to a point here. You have this fine line that filmmakers have to walk now. They realize that, how much do you lean into fan service to give the fans what they claim they want? And Alien Covenant is going to be a prime example of this. So you mix that with, well, how much do you chase after your own vision at the risk of alienating your audience? No pun intended. That brings us to Alien Covenant. And the reason why I'm going into all this intro is because this is going to be a spoiler talk. I mean, I figure most of you would have seen this film by now if you had wanted to really, really see it, and the rest of you are kind of just waiting to hear what the commentary is. So this is spoiler talk before I go any further. Alien Covenant is the sequel to the very mixed bag reaction film Prometheus. Prometheus had a very, very mixed reaction, and I believe that the mixed reaction was due to the fact that Ridley Scott wanted to do his own thing. He had this idea for where you could go with an Alien prequel that it established a new universe almost. The mixed bag was because he brought something that was an imperfect film for sure, but it was new. It did not lead us to what we thought it would lead us to, and it was actually for that reason that I kind of liked Prometheus. I mean, I enjoyed Prometheus. It was a flawed film for sure. Dumbly written in certain parts. But for the most part, I appreciated Prometheus not only for what it was, but for what it was potentially establishing. So it's with heavy heart that I say that Alien Covenant did not live up to the potential that Prometheus laid out at all. And I personally think it was because of the fan service that was thrust into the making of this movie. And a lot of people are blaming the studio heads, and studio heads insisting that this had to have a xenomorph, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I hold Ridley Scott in really high esteem. I think he's one of the best filmmakers alive today. And so this is not a criticism towards him, but I don't necessarily think Ridley Scott is immune to internet chatter. I don't think anyone is. I mean, Prometheus from some circles took way more hell than it ever had any business taking. It was a much stronger film, but how can you be immune to all that talk? I mean, it took a beating. It took a beating for years. People were still talking about it. But see, that's where I think the genius of what Ridley Scott does as a filmmaker is he did a film that was polarizing and that people talked about for years. And I believe that maybe Prometheus has a place, 10 years from now, the same way Blade Runner found its audience. So then you get to Alien Covenant, and Alien Covenant went from being the potential huge world-establishing sequel to Prometheus to being one of the headiest slasher flicks I've ever seen. And that is not a compliment. Not completely. Because Alien Covenant, at its heart, is a slasher film. Much like, the original Alien was a monster in the house type film. And while this movie had its gore, and it had blood, and it also kind of goes against all you hard R guys, that just all just go at the PG-13 rating. This movie is a prime example of how R doesn't make it better. Let's talk about the good, and then the bad, and then I'll wrap things up. The good of a Ridley Scott movie, of course, starts with the visuals, the atmosphere. Ridley Scott has one of the strongest visions of any filmmaker out there right now. His films have a look that stays consistent and is beautiful. Even when it's dark, it is mesmerizing. It stays with you. And he surrounds himself with people that are that talented. He draws them in because who doesn't want to work on a Ridley Scott film? And that is much to his credit. A lot of people dismiss the visual aesthetic of a film. They're like, oh yeah, of course, it looks good. I'm like, but that's not a small thing. How many films have you seen that looked boring or were standard or static? It takes a lot to have, you have to put a lot into a film to make it this strong visually. The cast and the crew were all exceptional. Everybody involved. Like I said, working with Ridley Scott is a dream any filmmaker has. So you had a very strong group of actors. The score was amazing. I love the music for this film. I recommend buying the soundtrack. Honestly, I'm working on getting a copy for myself. If you guys like listening to score music, I strongly recommend checking it out if you do Spotify or whatever. The downside is the story. And to break down the story, it really felt like the first half was Prometheus 2, and the second half was your Aliens film. Pretty much that's it. Your crew is the dumbest crew. The dumbest, most immature, most how the hell do you have your jobs crew that I've seen in film that I can remember. They were literally like a big group of camp counselors from a Friday the 13th film. They just had no brains. They had some guts, and they had some, good characteristics occasionally, but they had no brains whatsoever. Had they had any brains, the story would not have gone forward the way it did. So they basically have this transmission come up, and they're flying a ship full of colonists, basically. They're going to colonize a new world. And so they've got 2,000 colonists on this ship, and they get a transmission from a planet that they hadn't got any readings on before, and they go to check it out because hey, this planet's got better readings than the one we're going to. Let's go check out that one. They land on the planet. They walk around inexplicably. They get the readings that the atmosphere is good to breathe. It's all fine. Don't worry about it. Everything looks good. So they go down and they don't have any helmets on. They have no protective suits. Having no idea if they're sticking their face in a new batch of smallpox or not. So of course, what happens? They get out there and they get sick and they get infected with the alien spore, and alien shenanigans ensue. Then they start getting picked off one by one in bloody fashions. And look, the whole slasher film thing. There's a scene where one of the main characters dies, and the alien, upon killing this character, rips their head off. And you see the head floating in a vat of water. And it's creepy. It was unsettling. I give it that. But it wasn't just shown once where it would have had the best effect. It wasn't even just shown twice where it goes back to it. 3 times he cuts back to this head floating in the water. And it's like, okay, we get it. It was creepy the first time. The second time was like, okay, yeah, there it is again. The third time was like, really? You were proud of this shot, and it devolves from there. And there was a couple of weird, bizarro things that happened between the androids, Walter and David. David being the android from the original film, and Walter being the new droid that is flying with the ship's crew. Walter's the good guy. David, spoiler alert, is the bad guy. And inconsistencies abound. For the short version is David designed the alien. All of the aliens. He killed the engineers on this planet. He designed the aliens. And I'll give you one point to kind of you guys can kind of dig into it a little bit more if you want to, but the one point is at this. He designed the alien, and there are eggs in the basement. There is no queen, but there are face huggers. And the alien pops out, and it looks like a little version of the alien, like a fully grown version of the alien, just tiny. It didn't look like the little baby aliens from any of the other films. They kind of have that rounded look where they're small. Nope, it was a little baby alien. And, you could run through the gamut of, oh, well, it hadn't evolved to that point yet, or blah, blah. It was just really inconsistent. And I think, honestly, the reason why this is because Ridley Scott wasn't interested in the xenomorph. He thought the thing was done. He didn't want to put the xenomorph, and he's even said in interviews where he thought that the turkey was cooked on the alien, and he was wrong. It looked cool. It did look cool. But then you have this. If you've watched Prometheus, you will know that when they walk into the big room, there's a mural, and on the mural, it shows the xenomorph. So, 10 years previous to David designing the alien, the mural was on the wall. It's this kind of stuff that doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't. And even down to the point of where you get to the end, they dispatch the alien. You can tell I'm trying to give a few ways. I don't like giving spoilers. I like things to be a surprise. But when they're killing the alien, I literally went, oh, wow, that's cool. They didn't have to blow it out the airlock. Then they get back to the ship, and then there's another alien, and they blow it right out the airlock. Really? Oh, and you had if you've seen the red band trailer for the movie, they squeezed that shot in at the last of the film when it made zero sense for those characters to be having shenanigans in the shower. A straight slasher flick. Sex in the shower. The dude gets killed in front of her. I mean, it was straight Jason Voorhees. I mean, this is Friday the 13th in space. But you do have moments. I mean, there are moments. Oh, and there's no tension, by the way. I mean, the Prometheus at least had parts that were tense. I mean, like the C-section scene was, oh my God. It was like, whoa. I mean, I was just cringing in my seat. This movie, not so much. The scenes that even should be scary, they aren't. There's some CGI that doesn't hold up. A lot of the other CGI, which you don't hear about, holds up really well. I mean, it looks really, really good. But overall, I was, extremely disappointed with this film. And I knew I would be. I mean, honestly, I watched that trailer and all my fears kind of just were settled that this was not going to be Prometheus 2. Not the original one. When they were doing this film and they had 0 writers from Prometheus working on Prometheus 2, I knew that it was just, they were trying to rescale the thing. And all in all, a disappointment, guys. It was one of the weakest of the bunch. Now, between you and me, I hope that Ridley Scott does the next one. How can you say that? Well, look, he's already invested in 2. I want to see where he takes it. I mean, I'm one of those guys where I just want to see the story through to completion. I hate when stories end prematurely. And I think that if Ridley Scott were to allow himself to be liberated of the outside voices and just do, bring back on Lindelof, bring back on the original Prometheus writer, whose name I can't remember at the moment. Hooray for show prep. Try to get back to that. I mean, because the writers that worked on this film, they were good writers. There were so many of them, I just don't think they knew quite what to do. They were always trying to balance that thing. I mean, maybe. There is a version of this film that presumably will be out on Blu-ray that is 20 extra minutes longer. It will make it a stronger film, I can guarantee you. Not just because Ridley Scott almost always films too much, even he confesses that, but the original Alien, when the director's cut, when the extended cut came out for that, it wasn't so much stronger, but Aliens was way stronger a film. Alien 3 was way stronger a film. Alien Resurrection, there's no that movie is bizarro world. There's no saving that. I think that now Prometheus, the extended cut, was a much stronger film. And it's kind of like in line of Batman v Superman, much stronger film, where the movie isn't cut for narrative reasons, it's cut for box office reasons. So I will check out the extended cut, and I'm crossing my fingers that a lot of the stupid mistakes that the crew makes, they're not going to go away. But you're so uninvested with the crew because they seem so paper thin in this film that I'm hoping that the 20 minutes that they'll put back in will really flesh those characters out. I'm imagining that it will be at the beginning where they flesh the characters out because, when you cut a movie, you want to get to the good stuff quicker. You just want that tempo to be up. And comment down below and let me know what you think about it. Because, like I said, varying opinions, sometimes you can see different points of view. Just FYI for you fanboys out there that are like me, there is an Alien Covenant prequel coming out in September that doesn't have any aliens in it. It's like a corporate espionage book. And that's going to take a lot of flack just because it's an alien book with no aliens. But it piques my curiosity. I'm like, oh. I mean, I encourage you guys to, maybe they're actually trying to tell a story here beyond what we saw on screen. And a lot of the times, it can make the movie matter a little more. Like I said, let me know what you guys think. Are you going to see it? Have you seen it? What do you think about it? What is your favorite Alien film? What's your favorite between Alien and Aliens? I, personally, always have to pick Aliens because I'm a huge James Cameron fan. And James Cameron arguably got me into genre films from the get-go anyway. He was my favorite filmmaker growing up, so I'm kind of biased. I know a lot of you will scream heresy. Scream it. Let me know. Let me know why Alien, the original, is a better film. Some of you may surprise me and want Alien 3, and some of you just may enjoy Bizarro World and say Alien Resurrection. Some of you may like that side world stuff that doesn't make any sense whatsoever with Alien v Predator. It is a fun movie. Requiem is dead to us all. We all know this. Let's just go ahead and get that out of the way. And tell me what you thought about Prometheus. But anyway, guys, thank you for hanging out with me for this long movie review. I hope it made sense because I really wanted to go into, a little bit more of how a movie like this that should be so good sometimes isn't. And let me know if you would rather have filmmakers do a little less fan service and more personal vision for the, especially for the really talented guys. But thank you guys as always. You are the best. You are awesome, and I appreciate you. And I will see you in a couple of weeks.